up there is a pretty regular, some might say common or garden, British seaside town. And then just a little way up the coast that way is an early Bronze Age stone circle, possibly even late Neolithic. But this is no benign antiquarian investigation this week, because also just along there we have Sellafield nuclear plant. In this video, we're going to try to visit as best we can Greycroft Stone Circle. And it is no ordinary stone circle, because 225 years ago, it disappeared, bar one stone, from view. And then 76 years ago, it reappeared again. This then is the story of what might be the UK's least well-known and most unfortunate stone circle, and its location alongside the site of our worst ever nuclear disaster, as realised here by this appalling AI. And as an aside, we'll be taking a look at how dangerous this perfidious stuff is in historical content creation. In 1949, as this stone circle made its dramatic reappearance, on the adjacent site, Britain was making its first ever attempts to become an independent nuclear power. And that site went on to become the world's first ever supplier of nuclear generated domestic power. Britain's worst ever nuclear accident occurred there, and our little stone circle was in the shadow of all of that. This then is our attempt to put it on camera, and that's not going to be easy. Access is dubious. But we're going to tell you the story of Greycroft Stone Circle and its incredible survival against the odds. This then is pure WC21 territory. I have read all sorts of conflicting things about permissive access or not to this site. There is a footpath that runs across the other side of the field. However, I'm advised that the nuclear plant people hate anybody going there. And if you try and fly a drone, it is a no-fly zone here. They'll even send fire nets out or something to catch you. So it's quite an intimidating investigation, this one. We might end up just relying on a Google Maps sort of scam of some sort. But the story of this place and its survival is fantastic. Conflicting advice online about how you get to it, but I'm going to use this footpath which runs along the side here of the golf course, and then it sort of hookers right, and that's where we get to our Greycroft field. It was a chap called William Fletcher working with a Miss Fair and a bunch of lads from a local school, Pelham Schoolhouse, something like that, who brought the stone circle back to us. Now, they were alerted to its existence by the name of the field, Greycroft Field, which may have once been Gravestones Field or Greystones Field, but also sort of 19th century and early 20th century accounts of the existence up until 1820 of a stone circle in the field. How does a stone circle disappear then? Well, it was in 1820 that tenant farmer James Fox took it upon himself, allegedly without the permission of the actual landowner, to get rid of the stone circle to improve ploughing. And when we've ascertained how much or how little we're going to get to actually see this stone circle today, I'll tell you about the really fascinating discoveries that William Fletcher and co made in 1949 that sort of revealed the sequence of events of Mr. Fox's various attempts to destroy Greycroft Stone Circle. Do you understand anything about golf? I don't. The greens are very parched here, I noticed. They're not very green at all. Is that good for golf? Well, it's a funny old pastime, isn't it? Wandering around the countryside in silly clothes with a stick and a ball. There she is, coming into view at the end of the golfing pitch. Sellafield Nuclear Decommissioning Plant. Really helpful signs here. Don't do that. Okay, for anybody who tries to follow this route, I've now reached a point where a footpath comes in from the beach. It crosses the railway effectively at that point. The footpath that I'm going to follow now takes us directly across the greens. Are they called greens? I think they are, aren't they, in golf? It is now awash with golfers, so I'll bring you back, as they say, once we get to the other side. Having said that, there are these little thickets that I can hide in as the footpath wends its way across the golf course. I really don't want to put anybody off of their bat, you see. Over my left shoulder, you can see a large bung of earth, and I understand that these were later additions to the nuclear plant to shield it from public gaze. I have this wonderfully evocative black and white still of the then newly restored stone circle adjacent to the 20th century nuclear giant. Just been facing a questioning from some golfers. They're an inquisitive lot, aren't they? I'm now, thankfully, leaving the golf course. That has added to my sense of nerves about visiting the nuclear stone circle. The beck over to my left appears to be the sort of division between nuclear and non-nuclear. There are these little signs, nuclear licensed site over there. It all adds to this sort of impression that you're really just not welcome here. Now I'm going to make my way to the far side of the field. I spoke to a local dog walker, and he tells me that he has sent people up that to the stone circle via that route before. He did ask me if I was a mystic, so I presume he gets a few stone botherers around here visiting what must be Britain's strangest stone circle, the nuclear stone circle. Now, that might sound like a flippant, sort of clickbaity type of title for a video, but there was, of course, the Britain's worst ever nuclear accident in 1957, one of the Windscale piles. And radiation did spread out across the area as a result of that. But I believe in the 50s and the 60s, the government knew that they were deliberately releasing radioactive material around here with no warning to the locals or anything. So I have got a Geiger counter type app now on my phone, so I will use that if we get to the stones to see how radioactive they are. I've got to the other side of the field now, and there does seem to be a sort of a path running up the field boundary. There's no signage, so I might be on dodgy ground here, I don't know, but we'll give it a go. It seems that others do go here. There are some pictures on things like the megalithic portal, so we'll see how we get on. It's interesting as well, as I walked along the bottom of that field, you really can't see the circle. It's on a small sort of hillock, only about 500, 600 metres away from the sea. So the sighting of this as a burial cairn, which is what it probably is, close to the sea on the Cumberland coast, once again seems to have some significance. There it is. Sorry about the shonky filming. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get the drone up because of that flight restriction. But here is Greycroft Stone Circle. I will level with you, I got scared and I've made my way back across that golf course over the railway line. I did check that sign again and make sure I crossed it correctly. I'm now coming down onto the beach and I'll tell you all about it. So what I did, the concern really was the combination of the questioning from the golfers, the intense, oppressive security from Sellafield nuclear decommissioning plant, and just my doubts about the whole permissive access thing. I did take some footage on my phone of the well-worn path as evidence in my defence, but there was no signage. I actually remember reading about permissive access to this site years ago. I was unable to find that online this time. So I just felt a little bit wobbly. I guess my action of taking a few shots, I got the old camera on a pole again, a bit rusty with that, but I took a few shots, a few pictures to help us tell this story. I guess that's going to solicit applause and condemnation in equal quantity in the comments. It was in January 1949 then that Bill Fletcher and Miss Fair, advised by the legendary Claire Fell and assisted by the able-bodied young men of Pelham House School, if any of those are watching, it would be great to hear from you, got to work trying to find this missing stone circle. So they worked from the one remaining stone that Mr. Fox had been unable to move for whatever reason. That incidentally shows sign, if I've located it correctly, but the notes do tell me that they identified this, that he tried to smash them up with a hammer first of all and failed. So they used long probing rods to locate the stones, working out from the existing one, and then they got to work digging to restore them. Initially, they tried to use some sort of pulley system, but then it was too difficult. So they ended up using a tractor, and their report sort of thanks the donator of the tractor. Now, what they discovered was that James Fox had obviously tried to smash the stones, not got anywhere with that. So what he'd actually done was to dig pits to the side of each stone and then presumably topple them into that. So he could bury them to something like 3 feet to 5 feet in depth and then carry on with his ploughing operation. Now, the good news about this was that for many of the socket holes, the packing stones still remained. So Fletcher was able to reposition the stones with a reasonable degree of accuracy that they were going back in the right place. And this is, I think, ingenious for 1949. They analysed the weathering on the stone to work out which side of the stone had been facing out to the sea to improve that sort of accuracy in the restoration. Now, the early reports had told them that there were 12 stones. They effectively located 9. So today we have got 10 stones in the restored circle. Now, in the centre, they found an early Bronze Age burial cairn made of red sandstone, I believe that was made of, and that yielded some finds, a jet bead that helped with the dating to the early Bronze Age. There were some possibly human remains, signs of charcoal as well, suggesting cremation. And fascinatingly, outside of the circle, I believe near one of the repositioned stones, they found a Langdale axe, which may give us that indication that the site goes back into the late Neolithic, or something was happening there anyway before the Bronze Age cairn was created. Now, we've mentioned then that there was a burial in the centre of this structure, so the stones may have even been curbstones around that. So I just want to do a quick aside about stone circles. It actually turned out quite nice the other day when I was out filming that, but it is all wintry now, and I've actually got the fire on here in the studio. It's that cold. We had a good run, I suppose. I want to talk about the term stone circle because there is confusion around it, but I also want to talk about AI. Now, I've used 2 AI images so far in this video, and they're pretty ghastly, and I give the warning, you know, don't try this at home. It's not something that I condone. But worse than using AI to generate images, there are stacks of videos on YouTube nowadays, more and more it seems, which are generated through AI. And to address this stone circle thing, I'm going to give you a live example. So I have copied from Wikipedia a paragraph. Now, in this instance, the paragraph I've copied is okay for our purposes, but you will know that Wikipedia is dodgy. So I literally just paste that in there, click create, and we'll see what it comes up with. Yeah, so it's just downloading that now to my computer. It is done. That is done, and I've timed that whole process. I think that took around about 3 minutes, no more. So that's unverified data, no filming, no editing, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, we have a video about stone circles. Let's have a look at it.
Often similar structures are named stone circle, but these names are either historic or incorrect. Examples of commonly misinterpreted stone circles are ring cairns, burial mounds, and curb cairns. Examples of true stone circles include Long Meg and her daughters in Cumbria, henges with inner stones such as...
There we go. I think that is enough of that, isn't it? So that took about 4 minutes to generate that video. It would take about 10 minutes, I reckon, to upload that to YouTube. So in about 10 minutes, the job is done. Stick a lurid thumbnail on it, and I bet that would get tens of thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands of views, way above anything that I ever achieve on my channel. Makes me sound a bit bitter, doesn't it? But it's not really about bitterness. It is a concern. You know, I have looked at some of these videos out of morbid curiosity, if you like. And, you know, I mean, what were the images about in that video? I mean, it's just utter nonsense. But I've seen that for real on YouTube. But I think more importantly, where they're just copying, pasting information, you know, I've seen stuff out there which is completely wrong. I think it's quite a worrying thing. So AI is a no-no. Be careful of AI. Watch authentic content like mine. A quick thank you, by the way, at this stage to all of our members for supporting our efforts in the face of all this AI competition. I also just want to say I have realised by this stage in the video that it does look like that permissive access to the Stone Circle has expired, so apologies about that. I have actually seen it mentioned in a very recent publication, you know, something that was published in the last sort of less than the last year. But, you know, I'm not going to drop that author in it, am I? Oh, and that reminds me, I must thank Adam Morgan Ibbotson for our AI-themed thumbnail this week. Now, the Sellafield site, or Windscale site, as was originally acquired as an ordnance factory in 1942, but it then became, for a brief while, a rayon manufacturing site before being reacquired in 1947, specifically for the development of plutonium. So this was Britain trying to have its own independent nuclear deterrent. So whilst Bill was restoring that stone circle in 1949, we were developing nuclear deterrent technology, or trying to, next to him. And I'm sad to tell you that during the 40s and the 50s, diluted nuclear waste was being discharged directly into the Irish Sea there. I tried my Geiger counter app, by the way, and it went off the scale. It is a radioactive stone circle. Sellafield obviously went on to become a nuclear power generating plant, and it was in operation from 1956 to 2003. There was something like 21 reported accidents during that period, not least of all the famous 1957 Windscale pile incident. During the 1960s, employees voluntarily were ingesting cesium as part of the Cold War effort to understand the effects of radiation. Nowadays, it's a decommissioning plant. So they are, over there, they are decommissioning nuclear waste from all over the world. Now, I must admit that I did get all that information about Sellafield from Wikipedia. I'm an antiquarian. I don't do nuclear power plants, but I just find it fascinating to think of this early Bronze Age, possibly with late Neolithic origins, site next to this, you know, it's a legendary place, isn't it, Sellafield? And in the interest of balance, it is still a major employer. I don't believe there have been any of these sort of problems for a very long time. I think it's well run nowadays, so just make sure that I don't get condemned for that as well. Always remember, you can tell how many takes there have been by the footprints in the sand. I think we've got a lot to thank Bill Fletcher for. This stretch of coast, as we have covered, was once awash with fantastic prehistoric remains, many of which were destroyed in the last couple of 100 years. So thanks, Bill, for bringing this one back. Now, I do have a feeling that this video is going to be awash with me using the term awash, but we have previously established that it's better than saying littered, haven't we? So I just wanted to ask you, please, I'm hoping that the comments are not going to be awash with criticism about me going up to that stone circle. Trust me, as soon as I got that sense that I couldn't be sure about permissive access, I left, and I sacrificed footage as a result of that. I'm pretty sure when I review it, it's not going to be up to the standard that I normally aspire to. And I'm also certain I'll end up using the old Google Earth scam as well. Now, this is not an argument for breaking the law, but I do personally believe that we should have a legal right of access to our scheduled ancient monuments. I think creating that is a far better solution for England than the extremely touchy subject of open access everywhere. And feel free to awash the comments with your views on that. This week's video is full of intimidating things. I've just heard thunder now, on top of everything else. I don't know if I mentioned, there was an alarm going off earlier when I was near the nuclear plant at the Stone Circle. But I am currently filming with my GoPro in a country lane. I'll show you with some sort of overlay. I'm just outside the no-fly zone. So if you've noticed any elevated shots in this video, there won't be many, but I did want to get something of the nuclear plant. They were shot here outside the no-fly zone, and I used the digital zoom to get those hopefully atmospheric shots of Sellafield. Okay. That shot was not done with a drone in a no-fly zone. It was done with a camera on a stick. Old school. I'm back in Seascale now. The weather has taken a turn for the better. It was a little bit manky when I set out today. I really like Seascale. There's not a huge amount of the seaside razzmatazz going on here. But we do have Mawson's ice cream parlour down there. I partook of a sticky toffee ice cream, which, my own fault, I scoffed too quickly and got brain freeze. But it was really good. I've also got a bottle of dandelion and burdock there. You can see that there. Quite partial to that on a hot day. Tempted to have a beer, but I've got a drive ahead of me today, and it was all blonde stuff and pale ale and all that sort of thing. And I'm not going to conform. I'm not going down that route. So, what did you make then of Greycroft Stone Circle? I think we should be calling it a cairn, really. I got a shot on the return, I hope I did, that shows how it's on this little elevated hillock, if we call it that. It should show up because the long grass, they're not sort of obviously cutting the grass around it. And it's about 500, 600 metres from where the sea is today. Don't know how much change there would have been in that over thousands of years. But it's pretty clear, isn't it, that the location by the sea was important to them in their ritualistic burial process, whatever form that took. It was important for them to be there by the sea. And we've seen in other videos, which I will link in the description in case you haven't seen them, a bit of an emerging story about this strip of the Cumberland coast during the Neolithic and into the Bronze Age, where the sea seems to have been very important to them with sea travel and distribution of the axes. You know, they found an axe at this site, may have predated the actual burial cairn. But something was going on there. This was the area of the coast where they took the axes down from, the rough-out axes down from the Langdale axe factory, and then they finished them here. And presumably that finishing process was done here because of the sea for onward distribution of those axes. So I've really enjoyed it. I've probably upset a few people today. I haven't meant to. I know that there are two camps on this subject. There are some people that think that some bloke going out filming antiquities must be stopped at all costs, must be prevented from doing that. So that's the type of Britain that some people want to have. And there are others that will think it was pretty harmless. I hope you enjoyed that. Another one in the bag. A huge thanks to our members. A huge thanks to everybody who subscribes. If you don't subscribe, please do so. It helps get the channel out here. Now, I'm pretty sure that our demographic will remember the fall and rise of Reginald Perrin. What better way to end the video than that? I'll see you next week. Da, 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 da. That should avoid a copyright strike. Oh, it's good. Is it normal to feel something funny under your feet? Oh no. I think that might be seaweed. They can edit this bit out. It's hard running in the sea.